incredibly happy. This is so overdue having you in Functional Female Force. Thank you so very much, Hanna, because I know how busy you are, especially right now. So thank you for coming to Functional Female Force to talk about one of the most important things that we're going to talk about in this channel ever.
Oh my God, that is such an awesome introduction. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be featured. I don't call it what you call it. I call this the Jimena Show. So I'm so honored to be featured on the Jimena Show.
We love the Jimena Show. We just absolutely love it. And for those of you who don't know, Hanna and I met each other last year at the Keto Ladies because she's one of the organizers. But I already followed her before then because I already knew who she was and I already knew what Low Carb Universe was. In fact, I was the one like saying, hey, this is me. I am here.
You did. It was awesome.
Yeah. I was like, would you like to have me? I have a lot to teach.
I know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it was great. We met each other. We spent the most amazing weekend in Mallorca and we really connected at a personal level as well. So I think I can call you my friend, and I'm super proud of that. Thank you, Hanna.
I hope so, because that's what I call you.
Thank you. We have a lot of fun when we talk, and we swear a lot. We're not gonna swear in the show because this.
We're gonna really try.
Yeah, it has to be PG, but still, like we do it when nobody's watching. So, Hanna, for those that don't know your story. Obviously, I talk a lot about you in my groups to my clients, so most people know or have heard your name, even though they wouldn't be able to understand what you were talking about because you write in English and everything. But tell us a little bit about your story with type 1 diabetes and how you got to manage it nowadays, what is that you do. Because many people, I receive so many emails of people asking me, can I follow a low carb or ketogenic diet or my keto evolved, it's called keto evolucionada protocol when I have type 1 diabetes? And I say absolutely yes, but I am not the best person to talk about this.
Yes, well, I won't contradict you because that is exactly what I do right now. And as you can see, I'm not dead. So that's fantastic.
Hopefully.
Anyway, my story started very long time ago. I was very young because I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 2. And that was, of course, a very traumatic time for my family because there's nowhere in my family. I'm the lucky one. I'm the only one who has, because otherwise type 1 can, of course, be hereditary. But it isn't in my case. In my case, it was something else that pissed off my immune system. And so it attacked my beta cells in my pancreas that are, of course, producing insulin. And that is how I was diagnosed, or why I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. How I got diagnosed was that I was tired and I was going to the bathroom a lot and I was drinking a lot. And I was just like generally off. Something was off with me, and my mom, didn't recognize her own daughter. And so my mom brought me to the hospital and to the doctors, and of course it takes exactly one blood test to check what your blood sugar is, and that confirmed it straight on the spot that my blood sugar is way too high, my HbA1c was way too high, and I was, of course, as of that moment, when I was 2 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And it has been my ever-long companion ever since. Yay!
Oh my God, Hanna. And it's so interesting that you say that it's not, it can be hereditary. Jesus, I do struggle with that word. Hereditary. But in your case, it wasn't. Now that you are a grown-up woman and you've had years and years of experience with this illness, have you come to any conclusions on what might have been the reason at such a young age?
I have a theory. I know it's not very popular at all, but my personal theory is that I got double vaccine for polio when I was 2 years old, and 3 months later, bam. So to me, it's not a coincidence. I have no studies whatsoever to back this up, but there is nothing else that could have been, a trigger in that way, apart from to trigger an overactive immune system. So I don't know, but that is my theory.
And that is that you say that is very brave, because at the moment there's
I'm gonna get a lot of comments about that. I know.
Controversy about it. Yes. But I think I mean, we're not trying to say at all, like, we're not trying to say or to recommend vaccinate your children or don't vaccinate your children. That is your choice. We're not trying to say vaccines are bad. Obviously, they save lives, but obviously they don't come for free. Like, we all know,
and especially not in a double dose. Maybe.
Exactly. So here, what you listen in this program is always for educational purposes. And here, obviously, Hanna has said that that's her theory.
Yeah.
But obviously, we're here to hear your experience and your theory, because we are kind of tired of hearing what the experts say about everything. In functional female force, I think all the tribe in functional female force is very tired of just hearing the general knowledge, and we want to know and we want to hear about the real people who are actually reversing or controlling illnesses with their lifestyle.
And we like to think outside the box, don't we?
Absolutely. And that comes with risks. But hey, you know what?
Since let's do it.
Hey, we live lives that are, I mean, we live incredible lives anyway. So yeah, I do agree. So then, how was it for you as a child managing such a demanding and difficult illness like type 1 diabetes?
My parents were very, very amazing about it, because they tried to make my upbringing as normal as possible so that I wouldn't be impacted by this as much. So I never saw it really as a problem until school started. And I started going to school, and, those more rigid times and, all of these things. And then it was all of a sudden decided what I should eat during the day and all this stuff, instead of my parents cooking for me and stuff. And back then, insulins were different. So then it was sort of 2 injections per day. Today, it can be up to 10, 20 injections if you have to. And that is the normal course of action. But so when I was diagnosed, my parents, of course, also got the nutritional advice that every type 1 gets, even still today, which I think is mind-blowing, that they still get the same advice as I got 34 years ago. And that is, of course, 60% carbs with every meal.
60%?
Drink skimmed milk to your meal, because that is bonus points. And then also, if you have a piece of fruit for dessert, extra bonus points. So this is then 60% of sugar, more sugar to drink, and then more sugar for dessert. Yay, great for a person who already has a problem with sort of processing sugar in the body,
for
right?
A person who cannot or have impaired ability to produce insulin. It's absolutely crazy, like you say, it's mind-blowing. It's like imagine that you have a very severe allergy to peanuts. That if you eat a peanut, you will die, you will drop dead. And then your doctors tell you, well, we're just going to be giving you this medication, but you have to eat a tiny bit, 1 peanut for breakfast, and then 1 peanut, it's like, no, just remove the freaking peanuts, right?
Yeah, because in that example, of course, there's an EpiPen that can save your life. And of course, I use insulin to save my own every day, even now when I'm very low carb and everything, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. And I mean, for peanut allergy, there is an EpiPen. It will save your life, but it doesn't mean that you should be using it like crazy,
Exactly.
And it's
Why
the same with
should
insulin.
You relying on this if you can just like avoid it? It's like I always say, it's like they're giving you the poison and they're giving you the anti-poison, no?
Yeah.
So it's like better I will avoid the poison in the first place. No, maybe it makes sense.
That would make sense, but I'm not a doctor, so what do I know?
Well, we can't say anything, right? It's like we have to keep our mouth shut because So then you grew up with that, and then your family, and obviously you were the only one with that. And at what point did you discover low carb? Where did you discover the low carb universe?
Nice.
No pun intended.
No, nice pun. Yeah, no, it wasn't until much later. So it was only, I had to go through a lot. Like my teenage years were hell, all the hormones that, that go around anyway, and then trying to add lots of carbs like this beyond the roof, and then trying to cover that with beyond the roof amounts of insulin, that is just meant for disaster. That is just pointing everything in the wrong direction. And so I actually gave up when I was a teenager. I thought, well, why would I bother? Nothing that I do helps anyway. I tried everything from, changing the types of carbs that I ate, to changing my medication, to changing the exercise, to changing, all these variables. And I tried to play around with them. But of course, I had the wrong notes to begin with. I couldn't follow the script because it was wrong for me, clearly. And I know there's a lot of type 1s that eat high carb and can cover with insulin for it, and they do brilliantly, or at least as brilliantly as they think they can. And that's great for them, and I'm very, very happy. But my point is always to make sure that every type 1 knows that there's always a way to figure out your health and how to improve it for you. But we'll get there. Anyway, so I did give up in long amounts of times, and that sooner or later led me to a huge burnout. And that led me into what I actually wanted to do with my life, which was, I figured out, was nutrition. And then I went to study nutrition in a course and became a nutrition coach. And my teacher there, he was the one who pointed me in the right direction. No doctor, no dietitian, no nurse, no CDE, nothing that I had met during the 26 years of my diagnosis at that point had been able to tell me the following thing. We were talking about insulin and carbs and how that works in the body and how it's physiologically, blah, 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 all of this stuff. And my teacher points me out in front of my whole class, saying that, you know what, Hanna, you don't even produce insulin. So if I were you, I would really think twice what I put into my body. And this really became my aha moment. I'm like, what the insert swear word? What is going on? And I got really, of course, disappointed, annoyed, angry, infuriated with the whole healthcare system, and wondering why they had been lying to me for that long. Did they not know that this was actually a possibility, or did they not care and they just wanted to give me more medication, or was it a combination? I still don't know why no one told me in 26 years, until I had to find it out on my own, because that is, of course, the case with many chronic diseases. They have to take your health into your own hands. Holla! And and that's the whole thing. And that's what I had to do. And from that day, when my teacher pointed me out, I started straight away, because, of course, type 1 is an autoimmune disease, and gluten and autoimmunity do not go great together. So, and my dad has celiac disease, so in case it would become hereditary, let's not mess around with that stuff. So I cut that out day one. And then I did it step by step by step by step for a period of probably 4 years or so. And I still keep going. This is an ever-going quest. It's not that I'm done now, but so that I'm now very low-carb, ketogenic. I don't really care about ketones, really. No. But
ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. And but now I'm very low carb, oftentimes zero carb, and that is a lot easier to manage my blood sugars with. Just as an example, when I was back in the sort of high carb days, like somewhere over there, I took about 100 units of insulin a day. And for a relatively tiny woman, that's a lot.
That is a lot. 100 units a day.
Yeah, and that, of course, only shows that my body was very insulin resistant. I think, this is my second theory for today, and then I'll probably stop it on the theory front, but my second theory is that I, at that point, had some sort of double diabetes, what they call. So a type 1 can also get type 2 when they become insulin resistant enough. And today, then, on a very low-carb ketogenic diet, or way of eating. I don't like the word diet.
Yeah, no. We never call it diet. We always call it
eating.
Way of life. Way of
life, really. I take about 20 to 25 units. So that is a reduction of 75 to 80% actually of my insulin dosage. And this, for my friends in the US, is of course a great deal, because that saves you a lot of money.
That is absolutely amazing. And for like, you just mentioned something really interesting, which is called double diabetes.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, that happens when you obviously are a type 1 diabetic, which means you don't produce insulin, so you can't fight the sugars in your blood. But because you're injecting yourself with so much insulin, then you also create a state of type 2 diabetes, which is insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Because you're eating so many carbs or so much carbs, injecting so much insulin, that then that's the equivalent of a person who is not type 1 diabetes, but is eating carbs all the time, and then their insulin is constantly high, so they become type 2 diabetics.
Yeah.
That's the case, right?
That is exactly it. And because, of course, they go hand in hand, those kind of truckloads of insulin, as I was taking before, that artificial insulin, because it hits you all at once, that makes you so ravenously hungry. And what does your body take energy out of the easiest? Carbs. And that's why with those truckloads of insulin, you of course have to, but yes, you have to eat truckloads of carbs. And that becomes this vicious circle that of course causes more double diabetes and more insulin resistance.
That is incredible. And the opposite is also true for people who have type 2 diabetes and they don't control it. They keep just eating normally and they're eating lots of carbs. It comes to a point where their pancreas stops working and then they become type 1 diabetics.
Yeah, but it doesn't become an autoimmune thing. It becomes a sort of exhaustion thing. But yes, the end effect is the same. Yeah,
absolutely. They become insulin dependent. That's correct. That's more correct actually, because type 1 is an autoimmune. So it will be like having Hashimoto's, like having vitiligo, and so many others, MS.
Or all of them.
All of them. And usually they don't come alone. They usually come in pairs. They like to come 2, 3, or 4 together.
They like their friends too much.
That's very interesting. So, Hanna, so you say that you reduce your insulin, and how do you, because I can see, and this is something that many people are going to be asking about, I can see that you're wearing your patch. I know what it is. That's fantastic.
My sensor, yeah.
That is fantastic. Tell us a little bit about it and how it helps you regulate your sugars, and how eating in a low carb way, ketogenic way of life has reduced, or what have you seen in your tests that is different? How has it helped you manage your life, and how that amazing patch helps with the same thing? Tell us a little bit about that, because people are going to be so interested.
Awesome. Well, this is my CGM, so that's continuous glucose monitoring system. So that basically means that I have a sensor underneath this, and it's underneath my skin, and it measures my blood sugar every 5 minutes. This is something that I get onto my little phone, and I get a graph and all of this stuff, but I won't bore you with the details like that. That's just how it works.
I might just be the
we'll
only
have to
one
take
who
that another time.
Wants to see the whole thing.
And anyway, this is great because this, of course, eliminates a few of the finger pricks that I have to do every day anyway, because these things are not 100% correct, because they don't measure from the blood. They measure from the interstitial fluid, which is the fluid between the cells. Mm-hmm. So it's not as exact as when you measure from blood. So that's why I have to do both anyway. But this one is fantastic for seeing trends, for example. So if I see, I'm trending downwards, I have time to react. And maybe take less insulin or eat something to bring it back up to normal. Or the same way, if I see that I'm trending upwards, time for more insulin before the disaster is a fact. So that's how it really, really helps me. And sort of for me, this sensor becomes the movie version, and the blood test become the still builds like the photographs. Fantastic. Of my blood sugar. Mm-hmm. And that is, of course, very, very helpful when, just being out and about, or when you're busy, we're all busy and we're all stressed and we all have stressful lives. But, that just takes that one sort of worry, makes that a little bit less, because I know I have the security of this measurement and I can see where I'm heading at any point of time with just a little glance of my phone. So that's very good. And how, of course, low carb has helped me, and also how this has helped me with low carb, is to see how I react to certain foods. Mm-hmm. for example. And I have some interesting foods that shouldn't spike my blood sugar, but they do. So, for example, a raw white cabbage. I can't eat it. I spike like a crazy person. If it's cooked, it's fine. But if it's raw, no. Yeah, it's very interesting. And for example, it's great when I try any sort of new sweeteners or stuff like that. Not that I like sweet stuff anymore very much anyway, but hey, sometimes you gotta try, right? And no, it's just very, very good. And how low carb has helped me in terms of blood sugar is a completely different world.
Because many people are afraid, obviously type 1 diabetics, because they've been told all these stories and they haven't really been taught how their bodies work and how actually type 1 diabetes work. They think that if they don't eat carbs, they're going to go into hypoglycemia, they're going to die straight away, because an acute extreme hypoglycemia will kill you in an instant. It will kill you in an instant.
Yeah.
So why should they not be scared about this? Tell us how and why and how it actually works and why you shouldn't be scared of this, because it's actually the opposite. It's going to help you not become a double diabetic as well.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic question, and I'm very happy you brought it up, because this is, the stuff I'm dying to talk about. It is actually like this. The only thing, yes, there's a lot of factors that can influence your blood sugar: stress, movement, alcohol, foods, all of these things, hydration, supplements, all of these things. But nothing of this at all, none of these lifestyle things, they can help you manage, but they won't get you into hypoglycemia. There's only one thing that does that, and that is that you take too much insulin. There is nothing else that will bring your blood sugar down to dangerous levels than having too much insulin in your system. That you then, of course, also react to and blah, 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 all of that stuff. But for, just type 1, normal type 1, it is too much insulin. And that's why it is so important that when and if you are willing to try this as a type 1, you, of course, also, first of all, try to find someone to work with you who knows what they're talking about.
Very important.
Very important. But if you can't find it and you are willing to take that risk on your own, then make sure that you do. I had to lower my insulin levels a lot, like I said, and you may have to do something similar, because, of course, when you eliminate the extra sugar, you won't need the extra insulin. So make sure that it is very properly handled with insulin dosages, both basal insulin and mealtime insulin. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't cause hypoglycemia unless you keep taking that high dose. Of course, because then you're not meeting it with sugar the whole time. Exactly. And carbs. So that is, of course, that's how it works. And I'm guessing I know what the next question is, because the other, of course, big thing in the type 1 world with low carb is ketoacidosis.
Oh, God. Just kill me right now. Hold on.
No, ketoacidosis will do that.
If I hear ketoacidosis one more time, I think I'm just like gonna leave.
Okay, if you step out for 3 minutes and I can explain it.
Okay, yes, bye. Please explain it. Please, just please.
Yeah, because the thing is that diabetic ketoacidosis, that is a very dangerous state to be in. That it is very possible that it will kill you, and that it is something to take very, very seriously, and it's not a joke at all. On the other hand, nutritional ketosis is, a normal state that we've all evolved to be in, otherwise we wouldn't be here, quite honestly. And the difference between these two is that nutritional ketosis is, up to about 3-5 maybe millimoles per liter of ketones, whereas ketoacidosis is up 10, 15, 20 millimoles, along with normally a high blood sugar level, which is also, 10, 15, 20 millimoles, which is, incredibly sky high. And if that's in milligrams per deciliter, that's 180 and above sort of thing. So that's very high. And those things sort of construct a ketoacidosis. And the only way to get there, it again has to do with insulin. Yes. Because there's only the relative lack of insulin is basically the only thing that can cause ketoacidosis, diabetic ketoacidosis. So as long as you make sure that you give your body the insulin that it needs, which you will see on your blood sugar measurements, which you will take. That's number 2. Keep an eagle eye on your blood sugar measurements and see where they're going. And number 3, keep hydrated, because the most dangerous part of a ketoacidosis is actually your dehydration. Yes. So with those 3 things, I have been surviving for, I think, closer to 6 years in keto now, and it hasn't gotten to me yet. So it is, so there's a huge difference between ketoacidosis and nutritional ketosis. And you, as a type 1 diabetic, if you're watching this or listening to this, it is your sort of responsibility to know that there is a difference, because most doctors, unfortunately, do not.
That is shocking to me, that most doctors...
Speaking of hydration.
Yes. Most doctors don't know the difference between ketoacidosis and nutritional ketosis. Yeah. And also for all of you who are watching, and maybe you're watching because you've got someone in your family that has got type 1 diabetes, or a friend who's got type 1 diabetes, but you don't have it, and you follow this lifestyle, and then people tell you, oh, you're going to have ketoacidosis. If you are not a type 1 diabetic, you're not going to get ketoacidosis because your body, it's just... I don't think it's even ever recorded any case of anyone having ketoacidosis who wasn't a type 1 diabetic. And also, the way, like you said, the way that you get ketoacidosis is by having type 1 diabetes that is not managed properly.
Yeah.
So, no, like not eating carbs per se is not going to give you
not on its own.
Not on its own, absolutely. And if you're not a type 1 diabetic, then you're not going to get ketoacidosis. You're going to enter a ketosis state, not ketoacidic state. You're going to enter a keto state, which means that your body is going to be burning ketones as opposed to glucose. And you were born like that. So everyone has been born like that. Everyone was born in ketosis, because that's the way that we are born, and that's the way that we survive, and that's the way that we're made for. So that's incredible that you explained that. Thank you so much, Hanna.
There is actually one more thing that has, it's quite a recent phenomenon, and it's a new type 2 diabetes drug called SGLT2 inhibitors, and they can actually cause ketoacidosis. So that is something to watch out for if you are... dealing with that.
Type 2 diabetic. And that is, you are so right in that, and that's worth talking about. And also what you said about, I want to say this for those of you who've got type 2 diabetes, is that the same way that when you are type 1 diabetic, you have to lower your insulin because you're not eating the poison, so you don't need as much of the antidote. When you are type 2 diabetic and you're taking things like metformin, which is a glucophage, you have to reduce it as well. Because again, when you're not eating the poison, you don't need the medication for it. So make sure that you're a type 2 diabetic and you're watching this and you're taking metformin and you start a low carb style diet or way of life, that you talk to your doctor and say, hey, I'm gonna reduce dramatically my carbohydrates. We need to watch my intake of metformin because it's gonna be reduced. It needs to be reduced because otherwise you're gonna give yourself a hypoglycemia as well. Yeah. So and just as a kind of like a thing that happens constantly, continuously with all the people that follow my protocol or follow any other ketogenic protocol, is that if they are type 2 diabetics, they end up reversing the illness and they don't need any medication at all anymore.
There's a big chance to do that, yeah.
Most people, actually. My father himself, after 20 years of diabetes, he got out of it by being ketogenic in less than a year. So that was amazing. He's not diabetic anymore. So that's absolutely incredible. And obviously type 1 diabetes is different. You're not going to get cured of type 1 diabetes.
No, but you can manage it a lot better and a lot easier than you would otherwise.
Exactly, absolutely.
That's worth so much.
Well, it makes your life so much easier because it's already very difficult, right? To have to deal with type 1 diabetes. It's something that you have to have your eye on it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, you never get a break, not even for a second. I don't want to make this into a pity party at all, but it's just hard facts that it is 24/7, 365 days a year. It's like a really, really dumb job contract. It is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is 365 days a year, 366 even if it is a leap year.
Yeah. You don't get that day off as
no, not even that one.
Not even that one. No, that is terrible. And,
yeah,
and
you never get like a second's break, and that is the sort of mainly the draining part, and plus that no healthcare professional that I have met so far in my 34 years of type 1 has talked to me about the mental aspect of living with a chronic disease. Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because there's two things that you mentioned. This is like a 24/7 illness that you have to manage. So I would like to know a little bit more of how it helps, because I know the night when you're asleep is one of the most dangerous times for any diabetic, because that's when you're not having an eye on what's happening. Yeah. How does being in a ketosis state, how do you feel has helped with your peace of mind when you're sleeping, that you don't get that scared at night? And also let's talk about the mental aspects of dealing with type 1 diabetes, because you did say that you gave up when you were a teenager, and I know friends and clients that are going through that or have gone through that, where they say, well, F it, I'm not gonna do this, and see what happens to me. God send it to me, right?
Yeah, I can tell you what happens. What was your first question again?
About the night.
The night.
How do ketones help you stay stable at night?
Yeah. No, for me, and because you're taking a lot less insulin, you don't get these dramatic drops in blood sugar. So I can go to bed at a fairly low number in comparison to before, and know that I am safe, because both ketones seem to protect my cognitive function if I do go low, but also because I don't get those sharp drops in blood sugar anymore. And I'm very, very thankful for that, because that is sometimes what could destroy things for me in the past. And I also have to say that this is where this little buddy comes in very, very handy, because this particular model actually does alarm if I go too low or too high. So it wakes me up basically, and I can treat it. Then with being more in a keto state, absolutely, your awareness of being low is not at the same level anymore, because your average blood sugar has come down, as it did for me. Your awareness of being low is not going to be at the same level as it was before. Also, because you do keep going and you keep burning ketones, even when there is basically very, very little sugar in your system, you keep being cognitively aware throughout. I had to try this out, not by willingness, but by force, and see that I could actually function at a very, very low amount of blood sugar, and it was fine. I'm not saying that's the case for everyone at all. I'm not saying that everyone's going to survive that, but it was amazing to me that at a number that I would previously on my high carb days have been on the floor, collapsed, because that did happen a lot.
Yes. And
on high carb. Yeah, and seizing. I was completely fine. Well, not completely fine. I felt that something was wrong.
Yeah, you felt shaky and unwell, but you were able to act.
Treat it by myself, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible.
Exactly.
That is absolutely incredible. Wow.
And that goes, of course, hand in hand with the mental aspect of living with a chronic disease. When you have this more like sense of security and more sense of control. Of course, not every day is, roses and even blood sugars and low and stable and everything. Of course, there are still bad days, even on keto, but there's so much less. And they're less bad, and they're less in the amount of them, so that you do feel more in control, and you do feel more when you start figuring this like health puzzle out for yourself and what works for you and your blood sugar and your diabetes and all this stuff, because we are still individuals. There are a few rules of thumb, but we are still individuals. And that is, that has made a huge change for me, to just feel more secure in myself, and I know I can handle more things, because before, of course, with the high doses of glucose in my blood and high doses of insulin to try to combat it, I really never knew where I was going to end up. I don't always know now either, but at least I have more of a clue, and I don't get those sharp sinks or sharp rises in blood sugar that can either land me seizing on the floor or eventually in a DKA. So I don't have that anymore, and that gives me a huge peace of mind to be able to go on. And I'm now, in comparison to before, I'm actually looking forward to my future, and I dare to plan a little for it, because before I found this out with low carb, I wasn't sure if I was going to see my 30th birthday, because my body was so destroyed and so damaged, and I was so tired. I'm like, why? Come on, nothing works. There's no point again. And so I wasn't sure I was going to see my 30th birthday for a while, and that was scary to me and everyone around me. But this, this, not saying low carb is a part of it, but not the full deal. But this more controlled way of living and way of managing diabetes has brought me so much peace of mind, and has really helped me with the mental aspect, as well as, of course, things like meditation and yoga and all of these things that I add on. But that in itself makes a huge deal for me.
I don't have words, Hanna.
Okay, thank you, bye.
Yeah, okay, bye. This is it. Hanna, the amount of people with type 1 diabetes that, I'm going to say it, they commit suicide, or it's very high, or that they commit a living suicide in the way that they decide that it's not worth fighting for, because as you said, they don't know if they're going to make it to 30. Because in the old days, that's what doctors would say. It would say a type 1 diabetic will not make it to 40, and rarely to 30, but they will make it to 40. So what does it give you? It gives you, and also that sensation that nobody's telling you exactly what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
It gives you the sensation that you don't have any control, because you're feeling that you could be dead tomorrow, and also you don't know what's happening in your body. So why plan for the future? Why study?
Exactly.
Why do anything?
Yeah.
On top of that, organs start to fail. Then everything starts going really down.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very, very horrible situation. And if something, obviously, like you said, is not the holy everything, being keto, but it's a massive part of it.
Yeah.
If it can give you more control over the situation of your health and your body and your life, and it actually can give you hope of, okay, now I have this under control and I can have a life, so I can plan for the future. Well, you said that, I can plan for the future. How many of us just take that for granted?
Yeah, no, it's true.
We just say, I can plan for my future because I don't have any illnesses that I know of that are going to kill me at any point. But when you do know it, then having something that can help you feel in control, feel that you know what's going on. You just gave me a lesson there, very, very, very deep.
But then again, we could both be hit by buses tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
So you can never plan like that, but at least the likelihood is less that it will be because of my badly managed chronic illness.
Like I always say, it's like you never know. Like, we love to think that we are in control of life, and we have -20 control on anything. We like to think it, and me first, because I'm a control freak. I love to feel that I'm in control. Now I know that I'm not in control of anything, and I've worked a lot on reducing that kind of like.
I know, right? Yeah. But it takes work.
Yeah.
And you don't really realize it until it's there, facing you.
Exactly. So we don't control anything. But at least what you're doing at the moment, it gives you at least a sensation that you know what's going on, and that you are not at the mercy of.
At least a little bit more than it used to. Exactly. Because, about 10 years ago, my HbA1c level, which is basically the average blood sugar level for the past 8 to 12 weeks, 6 to 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how quickly our body turns around the red blood cells. Anyway, so this was about 10 years ago. It was over 10, so it was double digits. A normal person for this measurement for a normal person is, sort of up to 5.7 maybe. And after that, you become pre-diabetic. Of course, we know that it happens earlier. Anyway, that's another discussion. But for me, it was over 10. So I was terribly and horribly controlled back then. Because, of course, I had the complete wrong information, the complete wrong script. And I was working against myself more than with myself. And today, I am very happy to report that it is at a normal level of 5.1. I'm actually healthier than some healthy people.
Yes, I have a lot of clients that have no diabetes, type 1 diabetes at least, and they are much higher than that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing, Hanna. Hanna, I think just like talking to you, like I knew this was going to be amazing, but you've touched some very, very sensitive points that I love, and that those kind of topics can only be brought by someone who has lived them in their own skin. So it wasn't my place to talk about. They asked me so much, talk about type 1 diabetes. I was like, it's not my place, because I know the theory behind it, but I have no idea how it feels, how you live with it, and how amazing it could be to follow a certain type of life and get better at it. So Hanna, thank you so much. I don't know if there is anything else you want to add for people going through this and thinking about doing this lifestyle or anything, or for younger people even. Whatever you want to say. There
is, I know you know who this quote is by, but everything is figure outable. There's always something that you can do. You can always figure your stuff out in whatever health conundrum you may be in, and whatever health crisis you are in. There's always something you can do to improve it and to not maybe solve it fully, but solve it so that it becomes the best that it can be. That's what I want to share.
That's another thing that I didn't say at the beginning, and is that Hanna and I are both Marie Forleo B-schoolers. And yes. So yeah, cool people, right? Cool.
Only cool people do that.
So yeah, Marie Forleo, we like you, we love you, and yeah, everything is figure outable. Thank you so much, Hanna, for being here with us today in the Jimena show, like you call it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure and honor.
I always love talking to you, and for bringing us so much common sense about type 1 diabetes. Thank you, Hanna. Thank you very much. I'm going to be leaving all your links in the description box of this video so everyone can follow her. If you can't read what she writes, then use Google Translator. It's amazing. It really does a very good job. She writes very, very interesting stuff. She's all over the world giving talks, and her Instagram is very active. So please follow her. She's a wonderful girl. And thank you so much, you, for being here today with Hanna and I. I send you all huge kisses, and especially to you, Hanna.